Holy water, Latin prayers, a body writhing in bed while a demon screams from within. Exorcism movies have haunted our screens for decades, but not all of them follow the same rules. Some are rooted in faith, others are in fear. From the classics that started it all to the modern horrors that twisted the formula, this is every exorcism movie explained, where salvation meets something far more terrifying. So, make sure to turn off the lights because, my friend, you're in for a thrill ride. Some call it the scariest film ever made. The Exorcist wasn't just a movie, it was an event. In 1973, audiences fainted in theaters. People ran out screaming, and for good reason. A 12-year-old girl named Regan begins speaking in unknown languages, contorting her body and attacking her mother. Science fails. Medicine fails. So they turn to the church. What follows is a war, not with guns or fists, but with holy water, Latin prayers, and ancient rituals. Father Marin, an older priest with a haunted past, teams up with Father Karras, a man losing his faith. They battle the demon Pazuzu inside Regan's bedroom. The room turns cold. The bed shakes. Regan's voice becomes inhuman. It's not just terrifying. It feels evil. But beneath the horror is something more. A story about guilt, sacrifice, and belief. The ending is violent, tragic, and unforgettable. The Exorcist didn't just influence horror, it changed it. Almost every exorcism movie after this owes it everything. He doesn't wear a collar or sprinkle holy water. But John Constantine is an exorcist, just not one the church would bless. He walks between two worlds, one of the living and one crawling with demons hiding inside human skin. He's not here to pray. He's here to cast them out, forcefully. Constantine takes the classic exorcism story and dresses it in smoke, neon, and shadows. He doesn't chant Latin. He fights demons with relics, spells, and rage. And he does it because he's already been to hell. He knows what's waiting. The film begins with a cursed spear, the spear of destiny, and a young woman who throws herself from a hospital roof. Her twin sister believes it wasn't suicide. Constantine is dragged into the mystery, uncovering a plan by demons to break into the human world. This isn't possession by accident. It's a war. The rules are clear. Angels and demons can influence humans, but not possess them. Someone is breaking that rule. A half-breed demon named Balthazar plays games. A possessed girl claws at the ceiling, and Archangel Gabriel turns out to be no angel at all. What makes Constantine terrifying isn't just the visuals. It's the idea that hell is always near. And sometimes, the people who fight it are already doomed. John Constantine doesn't ask for redemption. He earns it through pain, sacrifice, and a cigarette-stained promise to send every demon back where it came from. Evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it just waits for you to doubt. The Rite dives deep into the murky waters of belief, trauma, and unseen war. Inspired by true events, it stars Anthony Hopkins as Father Lucas, a veteran exorcist who doesn't need to raise his voice to make you uneasy. The story follows Michael Kovac, a young seminary student sent to Rome. He's smart, skeptical, and barely clinging to his faith. He believes in science, not demons, and certainly not in exorcisms. But then he meets Father Lucas. What begins as an observational visit quickly spirals into something darker. A young pregnant girl is possessed. Her voice shifts. Her knowledge becomes impossible. Her body boils with rage and pain. Michael watches, refusing to believe, until disbelief is no longer an option. And then the tables turn. The demon begins speaking through Father Lucas. Now the seasoned exorcist is the one consumed. Michael must step up, not just as a student, but as the exorcist. His faith, or what's left of it, is all that stands between possession and salvation. Hopkins plays Father Lucas with terrifying restraint. No theatrics, just a man weathered by battles most never see. The Rite doesn't drench you in blood. It chills you with silence, with suggestion. And in the quiet, it asks, is doubt your shield, or the demon's invitation? Not all exorcism films are about demons. Some are about power, who controls it and who dares to question it. Stigmata takes a bold step in a different direction, asking what happens when the church itself is afraid of the truth. Frankie Page is no believer. She's a young, modern, atheist hairdresser with zero interest in religion. But one day she begins to suffer, not just emotionally, but physically. Wounds open on her wrists, feet, and side. She bleeds like Christ. She speaks in ancient languages she's never studied. She collapses into violent seizures. The Vatican dispatches Father Andrew Kiernan, a priest and scientist, to investigate. At first, he assumes it's fake, or perhaps mental illness. But the deeper he digs, the darker the truth becomes. Frankie isn't possessed. She's a vessel, a messenger. She's channeling a banned gospel, one that says God doesn't live in churches, that the divine is within, that organized religion may be missing the point entirely. The church calls it heresy, but is it? As Frankie spirals, the film shifts focus. This isn't about driving out a demon, it's about silencing a message. The horror becomes institutional, not supernatural. The enemy is fear. The fear of losing control, of questioning dogma, of letting the people hear something that can't be unheard. Stigmata flips the genre on its head. It's not the possessed who needs saving, it's the system trying to stop her. And the real exorcism may be the one needed by those hiding behind robes and rituals. Before the spin-offs, before the universe of Annabelle and the Nun, there was just one house, one family, one evil that refused to leave. The Conjuring brought exorcism horror back with a vengeance. It's based on the real files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators whose lives were defined by their encounters with forces most of us would run from. The Perron family moves into a rural farmhouse. It's rustic, quiet, and cheap. Too cheap. Soon, clocks stop at 3:07 a.m. Doors slam. Children talk to shadows. The mother begins to change, drawn to the basement, withdrawn from her family, marked by bruises no one can explain. The Warrens investigate and uncover something buried in the soil of the land. Bathsheba, a witch who sacrificed her infant to the devil and cursed the house to become a breeding ground for evil. And it works. The possession doesn't happen all at once. It builds, slow, terrifying, and deliberate. By the time the family realizes what's happening, it's already too late. The exorcism isn't glamorous. It's chaotic, primal. The mother screams, tied to a chair. Her voice isn't hers anymore. She calls out for blood, and Ed Warren, though unordained, steps in. Because waiting for permission would mean death for everyone in the room. But The Conjuring isn't just scary. It's grounded in emotion. The Warrens aren't ghost hunters for thrills. They do this because they believe love is worth protecting, even from the invisible. Every bump in the night, every demonic threat, is another battle in a war most of us never see. With masterful direction, bone-snapping tension, and a rare sincerity, The Conjuring didn't just terrify audiences. It reminded them why these stories matter. Why exorcism, at its core, isn't about ritual. It's about holding on to what you love when the darkness wants to take it away. Beneath the polished marble of the Vatican lies something ancient, something the Church would rather keep buried. The Pope's Exorcist introduces us to Father Gabriele Amorth, not a myth, not a character, but a real man who performed over 100,000 exorcisms. He isn't a haunted priest. He's a warrior with a sense of humor and a deep understanding of evil. Played with fierce conviction by Russell Crowe, Amorth uncovers a possession unlike any other. A young boy overtaken by something tied directly to a Vatican secret buried for centuries. The child writhes and speaks in multiple voices. But the real horror isn't in the room. It's in the centuries of silence, the cover-ups, and the documents the church hoped no one would read again. This film doesn't just deal with possession. It deals with power, with legacy, with the things even the Pope can't explain. There's something worse than being possessed. It's surviving one. 18 years ago, Father Peter Williams failed. During an exorcism, he was overtaken by the demon he tried to cast out. What followed was not just spiritual failure, it was sin. A sin so deep, he buried it in silence. Now that silence is cracking open. Another possession emerges, and this time, the demon knows him by name. As the church prepares to fight evil, Peter is forced to confront what he left behind. The stakes are no longer just spiritual. They're personal. The Exorcism of God doesn't give easy redemption. It probes into the idea that not every priest is clean, that sometimes the exorcist needs saving more than the possessed. The film's greatest horror isn't in the rituals. It's in the guilt that never dies. This one hits harder because it's rooted in real events. Inspired by the Tănacu exorcism case in Romania, the film follows a young journalist who heads to a remote village to understand why a priest was charged with murdering a nun during what he claimed was an exorcism. The setting is haunting in its realism: crumbling churches, vast fields that stretch into nothing, and candlelit rituals in places where faith feels like a faint memory. The villagers speak in whispers, weighed down by fear. The accused priest doesn't deny what happened. Instead, he insists that the nun wasn't just sick, she was possessed. And he did what he had to. As the journalist investigates, she begins to sense something isn't right. Not just in the town, in herself. There's a quiet shift. Glimpses of figures, dreams that bleed into reality. She feels watched, followed, touched by something unseen. What makes the Crucifixion stand out is its restraint. It doesn't lean on jump scares or spectacle. The horror builds in silence, in the moments between answers, in eyes that refuse to meet hers, in the heaviness of faith tested to its limit. By the time she begins to understand what really happened, she's already in too deep, and so are we. This story doesn't begin with a possession. It begins with what looks like the end of one. A young woman named Hannah dies during a failed exorcism. Her body is broken, scarred, and lifeless, or so everyone believes. Her corpse is delivered to a city morgue during the overnight shift, where Megan, a former police officer trying to rebuild her life, is working alone. It's the perfect horror setup. A sterile, fluorescent-lit basement where no one else is around. As Megan begins her shift, strange things happen. Electronic doors malfunction, lights flicker. The corpse on the table moves, subtly at first. A finger twitches. Then an eye opens. But it's not just about supernatural activity. Megan is dealing with her own trauma. And the film cleverly blends her personal instability with the growing sense of dread around Hannah's presence. As people around her start disappearing, she realizes this is no ordinary case of post-traumatic stress. Hannah may be dead, but something inside her is still very much alive. And it's looking for a new host. Unlike traditional exorcism films that stick to churches or religious settings, this one isolates its characters in a clinical environment. No holy water, no priests, no rituals. Just cold steel, concrete walls, and one person who has to survive the night while evil creeps closer with every breath. This film takes us to Enfield, a modest neighborhood in North London, where a mother and her children are facing something they can't explain. At first, it's small things, knocks on walls, furniture that won't stay put. Then the intensity escalates. One of the daughters is repeatedly thrown from her bed by an invisible force, and voices begin to come out of her mouth that aren't her own. Enter Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators. They've dealt with hauntings before, but this case feels different. Lorraine, already haunted by a disturbing vision of a demonic nun, begins to sense that whatever's inside this house has a personal interest in her. The strength of The Conjuring 2 isn't just in its scares, though it has plenty. It's in how it lets fear build over time. Long, quiet stretches stretch your nerves. Shadows creep just out of sight. Sounds echo with menace. The pacing feels deliberate, like the house itself is holding its breath, waiting to strike. But at its heart, the film is about protection, of family, of faith, of the soul. In one of the most powerful scenes, Lorraine isn't just casting out a demon. She's holding onto a terrified child, calling out for divine help in a moment that feels raw and personal. There's real desperation in her voice, and the evil in the room pushes back just as hard. This isn't just about defeating a ghost. It's about standing in the way of something ancient, something relentless, and refusing to let it take what it came for. These aren't just scary movies. These are confrontations between humans and the things we were never meant to face. Which exorcism movie is your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to click like and subscribe for more horror content if you dare.